We're at 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the Town Hall School Admin Building Committee to order. First item on the agenda will be roll call. George Hooper is here. Diane Allen.
Here.
John Doherty.
Here.
Paul Malorani.
Here.
Paul Ruggiero.
Here.
We got Glenn Brand.
Here.
Dan Pilata. OPM. Jeff Hull here. Kevin Kyra. Not here. Jesse Finley told me he would not make it tonight. Steve Turner also told me he could not make it. And Paul, we heard from Jack Holloway.
I haven't. I can shoot him a text if you want.
Let's see if he's coming. All right. I'd like to introduce tonight Tom Donahue. He's the new person taking our minutes.
Hello, everyone. How
Hi,
are
Thank
you?
you very
Welcome.
much, Tom.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for doing the minutes. I know our OPM really appreciates it.
Yes. I can only see his hand, but.
Oh, I've spoken to you quite a few times on the phone.
All right. Next item. Everybody should have received the minutes from January 4th. Any discussion? No discussion. I'd entertain a motion to accept. Motion by John Doherty. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second by Paul Malorani. Thank you.
You got voted.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank
Just
you.
because you second it doesn't mean it's a vote.
Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
He's back to minutes next week.
Now he's co-chair.
Okay. All right. So, Dan, I know you sent out the presentation. I was able to get it out to everybody. But tonight it's also in back of you for an update on construction delivery methods.
So we had a brief discussion, Mr. Chairman, at the last meeting about different delivery methods for building a project. The Construction Reform Act of 2004, which got implemented around 2006 or so, asked that there be mandated that there be a second way of delivering construction. What Massachusetts had done forever and a day was, you design the drawings, put them out to bid, you take the lowest responsible bidder, and then you move forward. Well, with the advent of the Construction Reform Act and a big push by DCAM, which is doing projects all over the Commonwealth, the CM at risk delivery method was born. It actually came from DCAM, and it's an alternative way of delivering the services of construction. So the contractor legally is your representative in construction. There's always this misnomer that the contractors, it's always us versus the contractor, or the architect versus the contractor. The architect represents you in construction, and the contractor represents you in, the architect represents you in design, the contractor represents you in construction. So with CM at risk, you bring the contractor on early, and the contractor helps clarify and Phil, jump in anytime, because you can, if you want to, we may not agree on every part of this, so I want Phil to jump in. The contractor comes in early, helps with some better methodology of putting the building together to make the building more efficient, starting at the design point, as opposed to where we would be reviewing the documents at a certain stage. They have access to the documents as we're going through the whole entire stage. It also gives us the ability of setting out packages early. We can do some packages early. And establish the total contract price later. So you had asked that I put together a quick summary of it. So I sent out a PowerPoint to George that is about as easy a summary as I could do, but on the third page or the second page, I have a pretty wordy, explanation, which I took directly from the Inspector General's webpage. So I rifled it from the IG. So design bid build is chapter 149. CM at risk is chapter 149A, and the A is what was added in 2000. That's also called construction mandatory risk. So design, I'm gonna turn a little bit so I can read and talk at the same time. Design, build, the drawings get completed, you put it out to bid, the contractor owns what was put out to bid, and prior to bidding, on a project this size, would qualify the contractors and qualify sub-bidders, and the contractor begins upon the conclusion of bidding. Construction manager at risk. Drawings and specifications are not complete when we start. You know, the foundation package might be complete, so that the steel package might be complete, so we can order things. We can order steel ahead of time, because steel's sometimes backed up. We can order, right now, almost every municipal project in Massachusetts, and I mean almost every municipal package in Massachusetts, that is of a larger scale is having trouble getting their main switchgear. We can identify the loads, design the main switchgear, and then design the building around the main switchgear. So that's one of the benefits of doing CM at risk. Things that we think we need long lead items, we can get ordered earlier. The contract is also brought in to advise during the design development and the CD phase. And after the file sub bids come in, we establish what the guaranteed maximum price is, and that's the price for the project. So he's working on a fee basis up until the file sub bids come in, and the file sub bids will come in when the design's complete. And then we'll come to an agreement on the guaranteed maximum price, and within that guaranteed maximum price are certain contingencies to handle things that might not be 100% drawn at the time that we finish the file sub bid packages. So I don't know if I'm confusing anybody yet, so I'm gonna keep going.
Dan, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Just for my own information.
Yep.
Now, when he says switchgear, he's talking about the electrical switchgear that provides power to this building.
Right. I'm talking about the first piece.
Right.
So the first piece, there comes usually 2 or 3 sections, on a building this size, it'd be 2 or 3 sections bolted together, all copper on the inside,
Right.
with
So,
built-in distribution for all the sub-panels. The sub-panels are easy to get.
right.
It's
No,
that
a
main
switchgear.
switchgear that everyone's
And
having
and
trouble.
I'm hearing they're like 80 weeks out, if not longer.
We just heard today 70.
Yeah, we heard 70.
70? Okay, so they're actually getting shorter, but still,
Yeah.
that's well over, I mean, that's
Yeah.
over a
Wow.
year just to get your switch.
So that's over a year just to get switchgear. I mean, Phil and I have the luxury of working together on a project that will be 100% complete and not have power.
Oh my God.
And when the switchgear comes, all they're gonna be doing is lumping in circuits and testing things. The building is gonna literally be completed. And we're still gonna make the timeline, but it's gonna be by hours. So, the contractor has given us a recovery schedule, because it's designed bid build, and he owns the goalposts. But he's struggling to get it. He struggled to get his light fixtures, although light fixtures are getting better. Some projects are struggling to get steel, although steel is getting better. As the interest rates go up and the private work starts to dry up, a lot of the log jamming is starting to flow through to make things easier, but switchgear hasn't got there yet. All right?
How does that work, switchgear? I don't know what it is, but when you're completed the construction, I always hate when things are completed and then all of a sudden they decide to go in and jackhammer something.
Well, you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, this switchgear doesn't,
No.
No,
Doesn't
there's a home
require
for it. No. There's a home
construction
for
in
it.
it.
It just gets plugged in. It's basically the first piece of equipment that is connected to the cables that come in from outside out of the transformer. They come right up into the switchgear, and then all the lines feed out of that into all the sub panels. So all of that stuff will be there. And so you plop it down on the spot that you build for it, put it together if it's in pieces. They're all custom made, by the way. It's not something, you don't buy them off the shelf. You order them and they build them to suit what you need. And then
So,
they come in,
okay.
drop it down, and then make a
Layman
connection.
terms, the transformer outside that provides you electrical power to the building, that comes in to your switch gear, which is your main electrical panels. It's a distribution that provides it to these sub-panels throughout the facility. So that main switch gear is the one that, there are different manufacturers, GE, Siemens, Grady. That's the one that's taking a long time to get.
I get you, and I just don't want them to put in a new ceiling and all of a sudden they gotta rip the ceiling
Yeah,
out to run
yeah.
the wires.
Yeah.
I mean, then, you know,
No,
I don't get
they'll
that
be able
kind of
to
stuff.
bring it in and it's literally bolted together.
Yeah.
Okay.
They come in cabinets that fit through a door, and then they bolt the cabinets together, and the copper plates between the two cabinets marry together, they bolt them. We actually test the connections with infrared to make sure that they're tight and not creating heat if they're loose. So there's a whole series of events that we do going into construction, but
Right.
we wouldn't let them build the building and not allow us to get the stuff into the building.
Right,
That
right.
wouldn't happen.
Nobody's gonna have to cut a hole or
Yeah,
anything.
what's the fee based on? How's the fee based? Is there a percentage or?
It's negotiated after you select a CM.
So it depends on how much you want them to do, right? I mean, it depends, it's called, in kind of general terms, pre-construction services.
Mhm.
And it typically will include things like value engineering, constructability reviews of the documents, your cost estimating. They would take over the role of doing that, which is another benefit from my point of view. You don't have to worry so much about your cost estimate, your cost estimator being, it's kind of one spot removed from the construction industry. These guys are actually preparing the estimate themselves. So you're less likely to get to a point where all the filed sub-bids gonna come in and they're gonna say, oh gee, we blew it. So there's some benefits to it, but there's costs associated with those services.
George,
Yeah, go ahead, Diane.
I have a question, actually I have two questions. One's to Phil. Phil, are most of your larger projects, have you worked with CMRs?
No, CMRs is not something that we do a lot. We've done them a couple of times.
You have done them though a couple of times?
Yes, yep.
Okay, and then I guess my second question would be directed to Dan. I'm looking at the PowerPoint here, CM at Risk Pros.
I haven't gotten to that slide yet, Diane.
You're not looking, is that?
I haven't got to that slide yet.
Oh, all right, well, this really comes in with CMR. There still are filed sub-bids going on, even if we go this route, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay. All right, and then when we come to that page, I will then take my question to you.
We're almost there.
Okay.
You're almost there.
We're almost
Okay.
there. So, on this page, this is the technical Inspector General's brief overview of the process. There's actually 30 pages on the Inspector General's website about this. As when this was introduced, the legislature required the Inspector General to do a review of the process 5 years after it passed. And the review, indicated, it was a viable delivery method. The MSBA used to give out, I don't know whether it was 2 points or 5 points for CM at risk when you did a school. When you did your high school, you got a bonus for going CM at risk. You don't get that bonus anymore. They stopped giving that out. So not as many schools are going CM at risk. It's kind of a little bit more even now, whether it's CM at risk or design bid build. Both are viable delivery options. I'm going to keep going here. So you asked for pros and cons, and Diane, I'm just going to whip through these, okay? So
Fine,
it's all right. Design build pros. Design changes easily accommodated prior to the start of construction. What do I mean by that? Meaning that you guys have to review everything, and design takes a little bit longer. We change the things as we're going along, like we have been doing. If we had started construction or we had ordered the steel, to change something gets harder after parts and pieces are ordered. Design complete prior to construction award. Construction is fixed at contract award. There is increased competition with design bid build. More companies do that than see them at risk. It's pretty easy to implement. There's maximum owner input and control of design, meaning you guys have to reviews during all the stages. And the pre-qualification process limits subs that shouldn't really be on this project. Some of the smaller ones won't make it through. The cons is that there's no input from the contractor during design. They get what we give them. And they don't get to value engineer. If they value engineer post-bid, it's a change order. And you're not gonna get the full value of the value engineering. You're gonna get, something less than it's worth. This is one of the big things that is a downer for design bid builders. We don't get the say of who the project manager is or who the supervisor is in the field. Yes, the supervisor has to be licensed by the Commonwealth, and the project manager should have the requisite time in the business, but that doesn't mean he's any good. And this whole alternative delivery method came from a company that did a lot of schools, a lot of bigger projects in Massachusetts, and DCAM had enough of them because 1/3 of their crews were excellent and 2/3 of their crews were awful, and it was like Russian roulette if you got the good crew or the bad crew once they were awarded the project. Design and construction, can't be in multiple package allowing early work. I mean, we can do early work design packages, but they're gonna be completely independent of the general contractor. So it would be something that gets done, completed before the next package, where we can do rolling packages with regard to CMR. We don't know the final construction cost with design bid build till we open the packages. We have the estimates, we think we're on target, and usually we aren't. I don't think we've been over. But you don't really know. I mean, the night before the bids are due, Phil and I are tossing and turning and not sleeping well until we open those bids.
Occasionally there's a surprise.
Yeah.
The last surprise we had, we were like $1 million low.
Right.
And, that's good, except that if we had known that ahead of time, we might not have trimmed some of the things that we trimmed going into it because the last cost estimate said we needed to take another look at that. So there's a little bit more flexibility kind of working up towards the end when it comes to the cost.
And, the ability to make changes with design bid build is by change order. So any change to the documents, we do a change order. You can't just say, hey, move the door, it's not built yet, where you can do that with cement risk. We have to document moving the door. We have to send it out to them, they have to sign it, so on.
But Dan, you do have, with design bid build, you do have what they call a pre-bid
Costs.
meeting.
Of course.
That they can come in and ask questions to you about the project, right?
Right.
And that actually goes for both, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes, there'll be a pre-bid meeting for both. And with a building that's not built yet, the pre-bid meeting is basically just to see who's interested and comes to the meeting, and they'll take a look at the site and decide whether they want to bid on it based on the site. Both delivery methods require them to submit questions in writing, and we'll answer the questions so that all bidders get the same answer. So if bidder A asks a question, bidders B, C, D, and E will get the answer.
Yeah, all the answers would go out in a written addendum.
Right.
That would become part of the contract documents that everybody is bidding on.
Dan, can you go back to
Okay.
Go back one.
Yeah, I have a question for Phil on his last comment that he made. Phil, you mentioned that you had a bid that was under $1 million, and if you knew, you wouldn't have taken certain things out. Can you change that based upon the first bullet line where it says design changes easily accommodated?
You
Prior
could,
to that, because you haven't started construction, so couldn't you have added all those back in?
Yeah, but it'll
Well,
be a
that-
change order.
it would be a change order, and would be a change in either scenario. But because with construction management at risk, they'd be kind of giving you the numbers all the way along. And so when we had a conversation here amongst ourselves, and there was a question about whether or not we could forward to XYZ, we could turn to the CM and ask them, and if they didn't have the number kind of off the top of their head, by the next meeting, they could tell us what it's worth, and whether or not it was gonna be a problem with our budget. There is a little, as Dan said, there's just a lot more competition when you go design, bid, build, and so part of the reason that we were low is because we got this particular low bidder. And they really needed the work, they sharpened their pencil, and they gave us a good number. But, you can't count on that. I mean, it could have been $1 million over, on a $20 million job. And then it would be a lot harder, basically, right? If you get a number when you're at 75%, 80% working drawings and the CM is checking the numbers all the way along, and they say, hey, the last little round of changes and things that we did actually created a little bit of a problem. We need to dial some of that back. We'd be able to get that worked into the drawings. Once you get to 100% and you've gone out to bid and you wrote your addendum and everything is done, changes at that point are kind of baked into the design. And pulling things out like that or adding things back in can sometimes be tricky. If you have, for example, value engineered out your structural system to be wood instead of steel, for example, you're not going to go back and change that once you're already out to bid and have signed up a general contractor. But you may be able to do that if you were halfway through design development and you wanted to look at those two options, and they could tell you whether or not they would actually be worth it. It's an exaggeration, but those are the kind of things that I'm talking about.
Yeah, also, Kevin, when we get the file subbids in, if we have a change and it's near their sphere of work, they want their pound of flesh. So we try to avoid any changes post-bid that involve file submitting. They're like a special class of individuals that have so many rights. They have more rights than the general contractor does.
You learn the word vouchers?
I won't go that far until the project's done, but then I wouldn't go that far. But they have a lot of rights, and they know what their rights are, and they try to push the envelope.
So just to follow up then, George, on what's being discussed here. So to Dan's point here, and to Phil, in design, bid, build, if we have some things that are alternates, I'm just gonna throw something out, say flooring. Say we decided to have all beautiful hardwood flooring in this building, all right? And an alternate was carpeting. I'm just going to use that as an example. When the trades bid that, they put in both prices, correct? So
Yes.
whatever
Yes.
trade is gonna be doing the flooring, they're gonna put in both of those prices. They'll give you the price for the hardwood floor, and then they're gonna give you the price for the carpeting, correct?
Right.
Okay, and then when we then look at them, and if there was something more important that we wanted in the building to keep the price, the construction price, not going over what we appropriated at town meeting, then we could say, okay, we're gonna throw out the hardwood flooring, I'd rather we'll go with the rug, because X, Y is more important for us to do.
Sure. Alternates do give you the ability to pick and choose a little bit, but you have to choose the order. So if there are 4 alternates on the project, you can take alternate 1, or you can take alternate 1 and 2, or you can take alternate 1, 2, and 3, or you can take all 4. You can't take number 1 and number 4. You can't take them out of order. So you need to be careful
Really?
about how you take those alternates. And we would typically recommend doing add alternates, so that the base bid is the lower number, and then each of the alternates is an additional amount that you could add on.
I see,
And
so
you-
you start lower and then work up.
That's what we would
Yeah.
recommend, and you could do that both with design bid build and with CM at risk.
Because
Okay,
remember, we are doing file submitters on both, and the alternates generally affect file submitting the most. Right?
okay,
Because if it's a material item, we will have already worked the pricing out with the contractor as we were designing our way through, if it was CM at risk. All right?
correct.
CM,
Thank you.
CM at risk pros, we are able to pre-qualify the CM team. We get to say, yeah, we don't want this guy, we want that guy. We get to interview them.
You can interview them.
So, and you'll get a general feel whether you like them after the interview. CM participates in the pre-qual process. And the pre-qual process with design bid build, it's the town and the designer and the OPM. CM has ownership of the project budget too, so they're required to keep us abreast of the budget as we're going along. It's not like they can get to the end and go, oops, we're over, we need more money. They have to keep us appraised as we're going along, and we're fermenting the design. We're doing that now with estimators. This is done with the actual CM. We can fast track parts of the construction before the document's completed. I briefly touched on that with switchgear and steel and, windows, things of that nature. Elevator, elevators are now taking, 40 weeks to get. There was something we used to get in 13 weeks, they're now taking 40 weeks. So, HVAC equipment, things of that nature. The CM will also recruit trade bidders. They have some that work well with them, and they'll push them and ask them to bid it. They know they have the project, they know they're the CM, so they'll reach out with their tentacles and try and get some friendlies that they know won't be disruptive to their project, as opposed to being assigned the file subbidder, so or assigned the site bidders, etc. So the cons. We start the process with the approval of the Inspector General. And that, it usually takes 14 days, but I put 21 days in there, because you never know. The statute says they have to be approved by 60 days. It requires us to have clearer definitions with the designer and the CM during design. What as Phil indicated, well, we can have them do a lot or we can have them do a little. It's really up to us on how much we want the CM to do. Just understand the meter's running. Prior to construction, the meter's running as a consultant. It's not running as a contractor. The allowance levels are higher. Your contingencies are higher to account for packages that went out earlier. I don't want to use Kevin's analogy, but it would be Kevin's analogy where, we went out early, we got all the door frames, and 3 of them don't fit, we got to take them down and do them twice. So the contingencies are higher because something might not have been clear enough with one of the packages that went out. It does happen. And it's a misnomer to say it's CM at risk. It's not, it's the town at risk. Just with design bid build, it's the town at risk. You are the ultimate beneficiary of the project. There's very little risk to the CM. What risk there is to the CM, they build into their fee, and they build into their project. So it's kind of a misnomer to say it's the CM at risk. So that's the pros and that's the cons. Any questions, Diane?
No, you answered my question there under the pros, the CM will include trade bidders that perform. Okay, you explained that very clearly, I understand now what that means. That they'll get their word out
Right.
To these tradespeople that they've worked with before and help with the pricing. Got it.
Can I just go back to
Yeah.
what Phil was explaining on Diane's question, or follow up on her question about options,
Alternates.
alternates?
Yeah.
Alternates.
1, 2, 3, 4
Yeah.
alternates. So rug, ceramic tile, hardwood floor,
Terrazzo.
whatever.
Terrazzo.
So are
Generator.
are you telling me that we're paying for the building, we're buying it, we're doing all the work, but we can't choose one and
That's
three?
exactly right, yes.
That's correct.
And the reason,
I mean,
the reason
that's
is,
crazy.
the reason
It's
is so
not,
that you can't,
actually.
so you can't bid
Okay.
shop, okay?
So what?
So you can't bid shop. Say you have your low bidder is your base bid, he's $100. Alternate number 1 is $10, and alternate number 2 is $20. And then the second guy, instead of being $100, he's $102. But his alternate number 1 is $10, his alternate number 2 is $1, right? So if you pick number 2, and then you decide you're gonna skip over number 1, you're just gonna take the second one for $1, you can make the second bidder the low bidder.
Oh, you're talking about the bidders.
The bidders.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the materials.
No, we can
The alternates affect the bidders.
these alternates are built into the bid, and so the bid form will have what your base bid number is, and then what the price of alternate number 1 is, what it's 2, 3, and 4.
But that's why you go with add alternates, correct?
Typically, you'd have to go and add alternate.
So
Now, you
an
can
add
do-
alternate means if I was building this pen and I might want to have that pen, a red one, I would have that as an add alternate. So in case I decided to go that way everyone's bidding on the same
So,
thing.
but each bidder will have the same, will have carpet,
They're all
ceramic,
bidding on exactly the
wood.
same
Decked
thing.
out, and they'll bid on what we specify.
on the same materials.
Yes, they're all bidding on
Okay,
the same thing.
I thought,
Yeah.
my understanding when you were explaining it was that we could only choose hardwood and not carpet. We could,
No.
hardwood's here and carpet's here, we can't choose,
Oh, no,
you know, the way you were.
as a group, we'll be able
I
to pick whatever
misunderstood.
you want,
Okay.
right? But if we decide to set up an alternate, and the alternate says, under the base bid, you're gonna have an asphalt shingled roof. And then you're gonna do an add alternate to do a metal standing seam roof. And that's gonna add some money, right? So if that's alternate number 1, okay, and then alternate number 2 is, an extra coat of paint on the walls, all right? And so alternate number 1's $100,000, alternate number 2 is $10,000 for an extra coat of paint. You can't take alternate number 2 unless you take alternate number 1, because you have to take them in order. So, but you can decide that you want the paint to be alternate number 1. You'll have those choices. But
Before
whatever
bidding.
Before bidding, as soon as you decide, that's the way we're gonna put it to bid, then you're stuck with it.
Yeah, we're gonna
So
go through,
we'll have that-
we're gonna do a whole meeting on alternates.
Okay.
And it's a little further down the road, and if you do see them at risk, they'll help us to price those alternates. If we do design, bid, build, we'll talk to the cost estimator about helping us price them. So we'll have a rough idea about what they're worth, and then we'll talk about putting them in order.
So we have to figure out basically what the biggest variable is for us, what the most important variable is for us, and then structure it that way, is that right?
It's usually, it's kind of, you have to find that
Sweet spot.
sweet spot between the value of them and how important they are to you.
And you generally, when I have alternates, when you wanna make sure that you have an ability to complete the project. In other words, if the bids come in too high with 4 alternates, but you only take alternate 1, and it's a healthy budget, then the town's gonna be building a building with alternate number 1, but can't afford to do alternate 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we structure it so that the town can get the maximum value for bidding at that snapshot in time when we do the bids. It's a little different with the CM at risk. You know, the CM at risk, we're negotiating the GMP with the hard data of the files of bids. But they also have to be open with us with their non-file submit trades. They don't get to cover it up like they do in design bid build. We're not even allowed to look at that section of the budget. We can look at their section of the budget in CM risk. There are positive and negatives to both.
Two of the things that I pick up on those, and maybe some of the other committee members do, is on the change orders with the CM at risk. You eliminate some of that, but even though we're ordering some materials in advance, there is the possibility something changes and that has to be corrected.
Correct.
But you've eliminated a majority of change orders in the very beginning by having your contractor, your CM at risk. The other thing is ordering materials in advance, trying to expedite some of this project.
Yeah, in a supply chain era,
Yeah,
there is an
that's-
advantage to ordering some things earlier.
Absolutely.
So,
And does the town have the option to, let's say, all the bids come in crazy high, and none of us believe it. So can we put them out to be for a rebid?
on the file
If we-
subjects,
You know,
You could certainly put the filed subbids out again.
sure.
Now, if you don't change anything and you just put it out to bid, in my experience, it's typically gonna come in about the same or a little higher.
Right.
You're gonna have the same group of people looking at them, and they're gonna make you pay for doing 2 bids.
If they come in higher, we usually interview and say, what did we on this side do wrong? And they'll be upfront, yeah, you know, your control package is crazy, or, you know, you've got an HVAC unit that they only make on Tuesdays in August in Singapore. You know, so there's certain things that, you know, sometimes, there's a million parts to this, we don't catch all of them. We'll catch 90% of them, but there'll be some small little things that we won't catch.
Good.
What's GMP?
Guaranteed maximum price. Design bid build, it's the bid. With CM at risk, it's the GMP after the last piece of data comes in, which is the files of bid. So, timeline and tasks. If the building committee votes tonight to go with CM at risk.
One more thing, just
sorry.
before we get going, and
Yeah.
to your point, the GMP, that's where I've seen in other projects, where someone guarantees that price, and as they get closer to the end of the project, they're running out, they're over their, you know, they're underwater here. They can't finish the project for that price. That's when you see things start to go astray. That's when you see subcontracts file for bankruptcy or not finish the project.
But they'd be
So-
bonded, right?
But they'd be bonded.
But
Right,
they gotta be bonded, right, I was
Right.
just gonna
So
say that.
the subs,
Everybody's got bonded.
not all the subs are bonded.
right.
Most importantly, the CM is bonded, or the general is bonded.
well, is that where
Right.
the importance of commissioning comes in? Because I can see if something like that happens and a person is going to say, geez, I'm running out of money, so I'm gonna cut corners and not put this beam in. Yeah, you know.
We're not that bad,
Yeah,
Kevin. A thermostat maybe, but a beam?
So, I mean, is that where commissioning comes in and says, you need to get that rectified?
Commissioning, depending on which commission you wanna do, on this project, I'd probably recommend that you do the commissioning on the HVAC building on site. I'm not so sure that the roof or the envelope needs it, cause it's standard construction, but you could. The commissioning agent will come through as it's being built and write up a list of deficiencies that we tag and follow until they're closed. And when the project's done, they come out and run every system in the building to make sure it works to the design. They also participate, commissioning agent would participate around 60% CD would reach out to the commissioning agent to do a review of the documents that are going out to bid, you know, a few months down the line. And they may have some comments in the bidding phase. All of those, like the CM, you know, things that are menu items. Do you want to have the commissioning agent on in design? Do you want to have the commissioning agent on in the middle of construction, or do you want the commissioning agent just to review the final product? So, you know, HVAC on this building, 100% would recommend commissioning. Not even a bat of an eyelash. I would recommend commissioning. Everything else, I don't think there's a value to it.
To George's point again, and to the person who's finding out that, you know, they're going over budget and they have to, will we know if they cut a corner by removing a light switch or removing a thermostat
These
or
guys will have
something?
somebody on site
Yeah.
Right, we
every
have it
day
on
watching
site.
what they're doing.
That's where our OPM kicks
We'll be
in.
here regularly
Yeah.
checking what they're doing, as engineers will. Now, if you're running out of dough towards the end of a job and you're worried about a contractor or a sub going out of business, a design bid build or a CM with a GMP is the same, right? If somebody didn't have enough money or went too low on their bid or something like that, and they're running out before the end of the job, that could happen in either case. It's really, really rare. But every now and then you do hear a story about a bonding company having to come in and hire somebody else to do the work and finish it.
And at least with the filed submitters, we pre-qualify. And one of the things we do look at is their financials. So they're required to give us their financials. So we look at their financials. If they're teeter-tottering, we'll find a reason to totter them.
And their decant standing, I'm sure, too. You look
Yeah,
at that
right.
also.
Yeah.
Well,
George, I have a question.
Hold on,
Paul's got his finger up first.
Are we able to stipulate that the contractors be bonded? So we are in precarious times
With
right now.
with design bid build, when the general puts in their bid form, there is a spot that they need to check off whether they're gonna require a bond for the filed subbidders or not.
But the other nice
And they can
thing,
do it by each.
but the other nice thing is getting bonded, bring their financials to the bonding company. So you know they're in fairly decent shape at that time too.
Yeah, if they can get a bond, that, there's a 99.99% they're gonna finish the job.
Yeah. So it's one of those, when it comes to the CM at risk, they'll have to make a decision. And the other thing is, with the general, you can't really talk to them about it, right? It's all invisible to us. But with the CM, if the CM says, okay, we're going over the filed sub-bid results, and they decide, hey, great, we know all these people and we don't want to bond them. If you all would like them to bond them, just tell them, we want you to spend the extra money to bond them.
Some generals bond.
Who's spending the money? Us?
Well, they're gonna roll into
They roll, yeah.
GMP, right. So, but it's all open, they'll tell you, all right, but that's how much it's gonna cost. You can ask them. If we wanna bond the big trades, electrical, mechanical, fire
Okay,
protection,
I get
plumbing, how much is that gonna cost? They'll tell you.
They'll tell you, and it'll be in the
guys-
GMP.
Who do this day in and day out, you're gonna eyeball their financials, you're gonna know who's healthy and who's
Right.
not healthy, and you're gonna be able to make a.
You know what, it's a small industry. The chirping starts as soon as one stops performing.
Yep.
It really is a small industry.
Okay.
So,
I get
stay away from this guy, he's not finishing jobs. Stay away from this guy, he doesn't get
Right.
back from the punch list.
The other thing too is you put a threshold in. Any subcontractor that's gonna be over X amount of dollars, they should be bonded.
Again, you're paying for the bond, so,
Yeah.
I mean, just knowing their bonding rate will tell us the financial condition of the bonding company.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're
I mean,
paying,
of the
if
contractor.
you're paying $1 million for the glass work, I'd rather see a bond on that, as
Yeah.
opposed to $100,000.
But if I know that the bonding company's, the glass company's bond is, worth 0.08%, and not 2.2%, then I know that he's probably
He's
doesn't
in
need a
decent shape.
bond.
Yeah, in decent shape.
Diane, did you have a question?
Yeah, okay, two parts. I guess the most important one, I'm gonna go first, is Dan, what, in your opinion, do you recommend to us which way to go? You're our OPM. I know it's the $64,000 question, and you've given us a lot of information. I understand everything you put out here, and I think you did a terrific job in explaining it.
You
But
should
I
have seen
would
the
like
book Phil
your
had.
opinion.
My opinion is, it's up to the committee to make a decision on whether they want to expedite the project and expedite certain parts of the project to ensure that the project won't be delayed. If that's your priority, then I would go with CM at risk. If it's purely financial and that you care about every single dollar, then I would go design bid build. Although the delta between the two is probably not great, and the unknowns on the latter is greater in this environment, either way is good with us. We're geared to go either way.
One more
Diane,
question.
can I just,
Hold on, just on that fact, with cost escalation the way it's going now, by getting the project moving sooner, instead of pushing it
Right.
out longer,
That's where I'm at.
right, eliminate some of that cost.
Right.
escalation.
That and lead time stuff.
Right.
Right,
You know.
exactly.
And, right, the sooner we get our pricing in there, the better off we are. The
That was
longer
my
we wait,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
higher
Two
and
great
it's
minds.
going.
Good.
And then, the other question I had, and maybe this is for Dan or Phil here. So
It's got you written all over it.
we're working on a CMR here. Do you feel that most of the contractors in a CMR, I mean, are they pretty much up and saying something like, you sure you really wanna do hardwood flooring? I mean, really, you're better off doing, I forget the other type of flooring they call it.
Vinyl tile.
Not,
Yeah.
what was that?
Vinyl tile.
Yeah, vinyl tile or whatever. You don't wanna do vinyl tile or something like that. I mean, do you find that there is that kind of honesty in communicating? And, I mean, that's what I call value engineering. And they're looking at the specs that have been drawn up and they're looking at the plans and everything and, do you find that they're pretty much on the up and up?
I don't believe that the CM is gonna make a recommendation on a finish. The CM will make a recommendation on a better way to do the finish. So, if the building committee wants vinyl floors, you're gonna get vinyl floors. But where the CM's gonna come in is, Phil has a rough structural design, the bays aren't equal, some of the, there's a lot of moment connections, which is a term that we see a lot. And they think there's a better way to do it that would reduce the cost of erecting the steel and reduce the amount of weight of the steel without compromising the load of the building. It's that kind of expertise that we're expecting out of the CM. It's not gonna be change, the door from oak to painted. It's not gonna be that. We can do that around this table and not spend a dime on a CM to do that. This is gonna be more technical in nature, on, how to pin the foundation to the ledge, things of that nature, different things like that. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, no, I think that we're gonna get some expert advice, and we've been doing this for a long time, and occasionally you're out on site and you have a bidder who will say to you, gee, I wish it had gone this way instead of that way, and then they have something that they clearly have been thinking about since they bid the job.
Right.
And then they explain it to you, and every now and then, you say, oh yeah, that probably would have been a little easier to do it that way. But now, again, because that's already baked into the design, there is no way to kind of tease it out and to change it the way they've suggested. Whereas if...
Unless you get the magic word, change order.
Well, yeah, some things just don't make a good change order. For example, you're not going to design, going back to my original example about wood versus steel, you're not going to design a building with steel and then have the builder say to you, hey, if you'd frame this thing out of wood, it would have been a lot cheaper. There's really no time to go back and redesign the thing while the builder's standing around burning money waiting for you to redo the documents, right? So it doesn't matter how big the change order would be, it just wouldn't function. But some of that input would help during the design phase with a CM.
So the question then that I asked of Phil, I'm gonna ask of Dan, how many CMR have you been involved with, Dan?
So,
Project?
we've been involved in 4 CMR projects, but not through the Commonwealth. So, privately, which it's the same process, but it's slightly different with respect to the file submitting. So we have open book pricing all the way through. We also have done 425A projects, which is pretty similar to CM at Risk, where we establish a total cost of the project and the amount guaranteed savings at the beginning of the project when the project is at 20% drawn, and then we all participate in the design, and then the contractor has to guarantee the savings in the design. So there's similar delivery methods.
So I guess then my question is, do you feel comfortable if we were to go with this project, the CMR, being a municipality here versus a private
Yeah.
job, do you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of our staff has taken the 149A Inspector General's course, which is, a full day. So I'm not concerned about it one bit, to be honest with you.
And we've done it as well. I'm comfortable with it if you decided that's the way you wanted to go.
And we did go, George, we did go through this CMR for the high school, but I was surprised to hear earlier what Dan said, that, they're not doing that as much anymore for high schools or schools, CMRs.
Because you got 5%, you got a 5% add to your reimbursement rate. When MSBA took that away 3 years ago, there was an increase in design bid build.
Ah, okay.
Okay?
So you still got the timelines, have you completed?
Yeah, I want to go quickly through the timeline if I can.
Sure, go ahead.
So it's the
Yes.
last page, Diane?
Yes,
I think
I'm
it's the
on
last
that
page.
It is.
So if you vote tonight to go cement risk, Phil and I will complete the application tomorrow and have it to Jeff either late tomorrow or early Friday. It gets signed by town council and by the town manager. The Inspector General has 60 days, but they usually take 2 weeks. They literally take 2 weeks. I mean, this has become a routine for them. We put out an RFP for CMs to qualify the CMs. We evaluate the CMs. And then we set up interviews and select a CM. So that's it in a nutshell. And we finished negotiation on the pre-construction work and sign an agreement with them. And immediately get going on what we can do to get some of the long lead items out the door. And then once the file sub bids come in, which are not gonna be coming in until September, October, was that what it was on your schedule, was it later, November, right?
I didn't bring my schedule.
Yeah, I think it was later. Those come in, we sit down, have another negotiation session, and we agree on the guaranteed maximum price.
Okay.
Right?
September, October. You don't have a timeline set up for the design bid?
I don't have a timeline for design bid build, but I can tell you that from a construction standpoint, we wouldn't be, I wanna say we were going out to bid in December, with the, so you're talking in-house designing, in-house kicking around materials, till December, and then we put it on the street. We get the file sub bids. Am I right on that? And the file sub bids are coming in February. And then, the general bids are coming in early March. And then we're gonna start construction in the spring of '24.
Sounds about right. We'd still have to pre-qualify the bidders with design bid build. And so we'd be doing that later on in the process. So with CM at risk, you'd be pre-qualifying all the trade bids, all the file sub bidders. And with design bid build, you'd be doing all the same trades plus the generals. And we'd be doing those around the same time regardless of the delivery method.
Okay.
And so as far as the schedule goes, if you brought a CM on in the next couple of months, it's not gonna have an impact on our overall schedule. They may make recommendations, they may say, it'd be better for us if we did X, Y, Z, or it'd be better for the pricing on the subs if you did X, Y, Z, because they're kind of more closely tied to the market and following things, and so they may make a recommendation. When the last thing we just did, we built a new 24,000 square foot library in Littleton, and the CM said, if it's okay with you, I'd like to start on this date. This is a new building, and they had an existing building, and they were just gonna move out of it, so the date wasn't critical to them, and they actually wanted to start about 6 weeks later to wait for the warm weather, and town said, go ahead. They would have done it earlier if they wanted them to, but they preferred to go later, and the town said, okay. So those are the kind of things with the CM you can negotiate and talk about with them. And you can't negotiate with bidders, right? You have to wait until you have a low bid and you sign them up. And then you can ask them to do certain things, and they could say no. You know, you don't have a whole lot of flexibility.
Judge, just a question, CM or design, bid, build, whatever, are there different, this may be a silly question, because I hope I know the answer. Are there different construction companies doing just CM and different construction companies doing the design, or are they all in the same pool? You know what I mean?
Generally, they're in the same pool, but I tend to see, I don't know about you, I tend to see a different group of people kind of that focus on CM more.
And then a different on the other.
And
So,
then a different group and then there are some that do both.
all right, so then which is the better group? Because I want the better group.
That's, I don't know if you can define it by better.
Not that I want to insult anybody, but.
No, but I
You
think
know.
you have a better chance of getting,
Because you can interview them and you can meet
you
the
can
project
interview them,
manager, you can meet the
and sure you
superintendent.
get better with one delivery method. With the other delivery method, with design bid build, you have to take the lowest responsible bidder without interviewing. So, the chances of getting a less than reputable contractor is greater with design bid build than with CM at risk. But to answer your question, I know some great design bid build contractors that won't do CM at risk. And I know some CM at risks that won't do any design bid build. But most in the middle will do both.
Is there
Because it's a different methodology.
Yeah, but this project is also large enough that a lot of the kind of more of the firms that I would worry about.
Yeah.
This is gonna be beyond that.
Jeff, did you have a
Well,
question?
that's my question, is how big is the pool of CMOs?
Well, the larger your project goes, the smaller the pool gets.
Okay.
We're about the high end of the middle and the low end of the larger, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of big firms out there that are building $100,
So with
$200,
the,
$500 million schools and stuff, right? There's plenty of
CM
people
at risk, at what point is is it a recommendation of the contractor as to what packages to put out early? When does that decision get made?
So after we get we can ask the CM during the interview process, we're worried about this, and this, how would you handle it? And I would expect to do that as questioning, I'm worried about steel, I'm worried about switchgear, I'm worried about windows. How are you gonna ensure that they're gonna get in? Do you recommend that we send those packages out, before the drawings are 100%? Those kind of things can occur. And is one of the valuable reasons I would go with CM at risk, just in this era of, craziness. Interestingly, the senior center, the switchgear is not large enough to be a problem. It's a smaller electrical service. So it's even though it will be made to order, it's more of a common size than this building will be. This is gonna be a 2,000, 3,000 amp service all day long.
I have a question, Judge, again.
Good.
All right, we're basically going new. We're not renovating, we're starting from scratch, brand new, which I feel a lot more comfortable with. We're not worrying about programs. I think of this more as an office building versus like a school where you got programs, and even the senior center is a lot more complicated because you got programs going on. But I really would feel a lot more comfortable having Dan make a recommendation to us.
Well, yeah, through.
It's a policy question for the town, Diane. It really is. It's a time versus a money thing. And I think, I've said it about as clear as I can say. If time is a problem, then I would go with CM at risk. I don't necessarily agree with the designer that the length of the project will be the same. I believe it'll be shortened by going CM at risk, which ends up helping. With design bid build, you're capturing a snapshot in time of bidding, and that's it, boom. That day in Massachusetts, that's what the cost of that project's gonna be.
And Dan, let me ask you something, I don't wanna interrupt you guys, but, say after we go through this, everyone has their questions answered, and it's pretty clear, and we get through the process, and we decide to go one way or the other, say we decide to go with the CM at risk. Through this process, could we change if
Yes.
something came, okay.
Yeah.
So we could
So,
just,
I'll give you an example. School got designed down in Westport, design bid build. Supposed to come in at 70 million, came in at 85. They went CM at risk after the bids came in. They changed to one CM at risk, brought a CM on.
So they threw out all the bids.
They threw out all the bids, brought the CM on, met with the designer, and literally stripped this building down to bare bones. And they got the building built, but nothing like what the taxpayer thought they would get when they voted for it. But it got built.
okay.
You know,
You kinda
it
answered
can
my-
change, there's no law saying you can't
I'm
change.
not looking to strip the building down, I just,
No.
the question was, could you change?
Well, that wouldn't happen here because we would be involved,
Right,
we'd be involved at the beginning.
John, did you have a question?
I make a motion, we go CM at risk.
All right, before I answer, is there any other discussion? I
Yeah,
know.
no, just to observation, Dan, you'd mentioned that your company hasn't done any CM at risk for public, but only for private, which is, I don't know if that's telling or not, that you haven't done any public. Yeah, no,
It's still certified by the Commonwealth to do
yeah,
149A, Kevin.
yeah. And Phil, your company has done,
We've done it a couple times, yes.
Just
And
a couple times?
Yes, a couple times.
I mean, it seems like the other way is a more of a majority than the CM at risk.
Well, the rules got changed.
Well, the rules are relatively new. I mean,
Okay.
there's only about, I think there was only like 16 projects approved last year in all of Massachusetts.
So the majority of my career is it wasn't even a possibility.
Oh, okay.
Same here.
So, but as the method goes, I think it's fine. I'm happy to do it, and I'm comfortable to do it. It probably costs a couple of percentage points more, right? 2 to 4? Because you're paying for that pre-construction service. And if that service is of value to you,
No, it was just,
Then I-
my
then I-
curiosity was,
Oh, sure.
I just had to ask, but this is a fairly new chapter of the law.
The key is to take advantage of the CM so that their recommendations offset their cost. That makes it valuable.
and it's really
Okay.
for larger projects too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
don't you have to be over 5 million or something?
Well, they
So
originally
then,
started
you
at
have a question,
5
Sue?
million.
I just had a quick question, just as we always hear time is money. When we're looking at the environment we're in now, which seemingly as we do procurement is very different than a lot of things we've experienced before with lead times and with delays, and I'm doing a construction project myself at home and feeling this very close to home. And saying, if time is money and we are in a different environment where delays are more prevalent maybe than they have been in the past, is there a more higher likelihood that savings from being able to plan ahead, being able to order in advance, being able to foresee, delays with certain things and address them in a CM environment, is there a greater gain there to offset what might be a couple of points higher? I'm just saying, is there an opportunity for
There
that?
could be, and I think especially in the environment we're in now. That's why I said kind of 2 to 4%, somewhere in there. It's kind of hard to know. But they'll calculate, and before you interview them, by the way, you can ask them what their fees are gonna be, and then you can negotiate it with them after you finish, once you
Right.
select them. You can't do that with a design bid builder. But that amount of money, if you just take that whole amount, that would typically put you just tack that on, the pre-construction services onto the construction cost, which comes afterwards. But because there will be a little bit of savings, I think you might be able to recoup some of that. But it's hard to know, all right? You wouldn't know unless you built it twice, right, at the same time, and used two different methods, and see which way you come up cheaper at the end. But I think you're right.
Phil and I would have to obviously discuss this offline. And one of the things that we would love to have is an exact knowledge of every square foot of ledge. We know through the borings we have ledge, and ledge is very expensive to remove. So with design bid build, we will have a higher ledge allowance than if we had a CM on there. He goes out and scrapes all the dirt off. We survey it, he surveys it, gets the exact amount of yardage. We're not paying a change order for ledge removal because we know it to the exact yard. So that's just one example of one item that the designer and the OPM agree would be a wonderful piece of data to have right this second. I mean, especially those of us that have done public construction for an awful long time. You do a set of borings. Sometimes you can hit dead center in a donut, and it's beautiful soil, and you go 5 feet to the left, and it's a rock, and 5 feet to the right, it's a ledge.
All right, I
Hey,
think,
Joe, just another question now that you brought up. Ledge is rock, isn't it?
Yes, ledge is solid rock.
Solid rock. And so that would have to be removed if it needed to be removed. And we don't know how much is there, but is that something that,
We've estimated how much is there based on the borings.
okay, so is that something that we would put into the process that we could sell that ledge or sell that rock and make money back on this?
Typically, you could ask, if you had a CM, you could ask the CM. We have sometimes hammered the rock out and then ground it up on site and use it on site for crushed stone, for subbase, under the footings, under the parking lot. There's a variety of different things you can do it. But it's really up to the contractor. When the contractor puts up their fence, they own it all. If there's salvage value they think in the stone, they'll include the salvage value in their bid because they're gonna sell it. But then they also have to truck it, right? But if they're pulling it out of here, if they're pulling out excess soil, they'll figure a salvage value. Unless we tell them, for example, you can't take it off site, and then they'll stockpile it. So
The thing I would like to say though about ledge is, I wouldn't want anything that's happening down in Woburn there, where they built those buildings way up and they're grinding it on site and people are coming in and moving it. It could be very noisy and that would not make the people very happy that live right on School Street. It could be a very, very noisy thing if they decided to start grinding this stuff up. I'd rather see them, whatever they bid, whatever they're gonna take out, take it out of there.
You guys are getting stuck on the word ledge. It's the quantity of ledge I was trying to get at.
Right.
So we've got the quantity of ledge in the estimate. And if it's less than that quantity, because we can do more exploration, we won't spend the money that would be automatically bid based on the boring reports.
Okay.
So that's an example. That's an example.
Dan, thanks for the presentation.
Yep.
I think the information you guys provide is pretty valuable, extremely valuable, I should say. I do have a motion on the floor from John Doherty to, John, it was?
To accept the CM at risk.
CM at risk. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second.
And for discussion, I'm prepared to support John's motion for 3 reasons. I think that this past year and a half, 2 years, given the economy and inflation, very unpredictable right now, and we don't have a clear view of what's going to happen in a year, 18 months from now. I think that lead times on materials are equally unpredictable right now, and just the fact that we have more input and more control over the project, the fact that we are able to interview, see these people, look at their financials. I think that, you know, if we incur a 2 or 4% increase by bringing on the CM at risk, I think that can be absorbed ultimately in getting materials ordered now, locking in prices now, and getting a head start on this project. I think it makes sense to me to do.
And if I could
CM at
also
risk.
elaborate, I think we're bringing on someone who's in the trenches.
Yep.
They are aware of timelines, they know what has to be.
And having a person who's connected with the trades right now, who knows what the environment is out there, I think is only gonna be a benefit to us, given this point in time that we're at right now.
Thank you, Paul. All right, with the second, well, I'll take that to a vote. All in favor of going with the CM at risk? Say aye.
Aye.
I
Unanimous?
I too. And I'm just gonna make a comment that I love what Paul just said. I agree with 100% with all the things that Paul mentioned. And I think going to CMR is gonna save time, because time is money. And I agree with them. So
All right.
I am in favor.
All right, thank you very much.
So we have,
So you'll get that letter out too?
well, I gotta finish the app, I'll get it over to the town
All right.
manager late tomorrow.
Next item on the agenda, this is going to be meetings with the designer and the staff for town hall and school admin staff to take a look at their places, each individual location in the building. So I'd like to set something up either through Dan or through so I can.
So we talked about visiting town halls before doing that, so that as they're looking at the plans, what they've seen might spark some interest. So did you have 3 town halls you wanted them to see?
We sent a list of a couple.
You did send a list of, that was actually the next item
Oh,
on
okay.
the agenda, and we could take them out of order. So I would like to set something up to see who would like to go out. Now, I don't know if any of those had town hall, school admins combined, or they were just strictly town hall.
Town halls, yeah. I mean,
So-
the municipal offices, so a lot of the things that you see in one will kind of translate to the other. I mean, they're all gonna have offices with private offices inside, a lot of them will have public counters, the meeting rooms, a lot of the same things that you'll see.
Yeah, we have had a lot of interest in going out to visit some of these, so why don't we confirm some of these spots, and we'll set up some maybe transportation. I'll have to reach out, I don't know if we can use maybe the.
I went looking for new school administration offices, and maybe you won't be all that surprised, Paul, but you can find a lot of new buildings for those services.
George, I have a
Always at an old school somewhere.
No, we can't do the inside.
Yeah, and one question.
Best.
Since I won't be able to go on them, I was looking at them on site, the ones that you posted and, you know, just going through them. I'm just gonna make a couple of comments from what I observed, some things that I liked and some things I didn't like.
What, okay,
And
why don't we
the
hold
rest of
off,
you
right,
gonna-
why don't we hold off on those, so when we do get other people to go see them, so, I mean, you're not gonna put those
Oh,
out
all
there.
right, all right,
Instead of putting them out there now.
all right, okay. And then everybody's gonna come back with their
What's
opinion.
that?
Right.
Tell
Okay.
them to send them to George.
Yeah.
Take a video.
We can live stream.
Yeah.
Where were the town halls again?
Drake it, North Andover.
Yeah,
So we did North Andover.
Yeah.
And although it's brand new on the inside, you know, it was an existing
fire station.
fire station on one side and a municipal building on the other side. So their town hall was squished in this little municipal building. They built a new fire station and then they moved
And
in.
they took over.
And it had a courtyard between the two, and we took the courtyard and closed it and made a nice lobby going up into the 2 buildings. So but the counter space, the organization of departments, that's the kind of things you should be looking at, not necessarily whether it's new or whether it's renovated. It's really, your departments wanna look at the departments they're looking at to see how they function.
Is that you guys? Did you guys design that?
We did not.
Okay.
We designed Drake.
That was,
We didn't do
context.
Contact One.
Drake it?
Drake it, we did.
All right, we'll set something up so we can get it
Okay.
together and I'll get the information out. We're
Yeah.
also gonna use the department heads from within and Glenn, if any of your members would like to go see some of this, of course. And then also we'll set something up so we can have individual meetings. I don't want to have a large group of people shouting things at you. I'd like to,
I'll do it either way, if that's
I
what
want
you
department heads to
That
be able
works
to
out
sit down
pretty
and, ask, because I've had a few questions and I'm gonna leave it up to you for that, but I want to set something up so all the department heads, all Glenn staff can come in.
But I mean, if you wanna set me up in this room and then have
It'll probably be the
departments come
auditorium.
in one at a time
Yeah,
for 15, 20 minutes, whatever you want, I'm happy to do that, or if you want to go on the road, whatever you wanna do.
what I'd like to have also, the layout that we could have,
Yep.
and then maybe on the screen so that you can zoom in on it, so
Yeah.
it's just, a little-
Sure.
okay,
They can
Yep.
touch it and feel it.
perfect.
And Phil on that, or you can touch base with me for the school.
Has the
I can
staff
give you
had an
something to look at,
opportunity to look at the plans yet? They have not.
Yeah, no, they've seen it, I've actually sent it out, so everybody's seen it, so that's why a lot of these questions have been developed. I mean, there are not a ton of questions, but people ask things about door locations and could I have my door moved this way or that way, or I see there's a cubicle there, should it be on the other side, so, I mean, that'll be all worked
Need
out.
one mid-month.
Okay,
I
good.
don't need
good.
All right. Next item, upcoming meetings.
So
Dan?
for this committee, it would be February 1 and then March 1 for design.
February 1 for our next meeting?
Yep. And March 1 for design.
All right, so we would not meet till February 1. Is that going to be Zoom, or did we talk about that on this? Was that in person?
I'm happy.
Here, I think we're in person here, right?
Yeah, so that was for this
Yeah.
one.
In person?
Yeah, in person.
This is-
On, on the one for the, on the first, we'll be 2 days away from receiving RFPs
Okay,
for CMs, so we'll be able to know how many have taken it out and asking questions and be able to give an update.
absolutely.
And at that point on March 1st, we'll decide whether we need a meeting for the following week, or how we want to deal with.
Does February 1st work?
That's about,
Huh?
February 1st is just about.
Does that work for you,
CM.
Diane?
No.
Yeah, I'm
That's
just,
February 1st.
We heard
just
you.
getting the calendar
So you move
Just,
forward with design.
Okay.
that,
And then March 1st, same.
Same
sounds
thing.
good. Let's
I'll
see.
take a few
February
minutes.
1st,
in the
wide
touch
open.
first, talk about the CM.
Okay.
Is Tewksbury in town?
It's a,
That-
it's a
that's a rental.
renovation.
That's a rental job.
So,
Who did that?
February 1st and then March 1st.
GW, I think. did that.
Did
Yeah.
I mean, we should see another town hall that's not designed by Phil,
weeks, so
just to get a feel.
It's different.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's 2023.
Oh, there are some on there,
No,
so,
it's an even number.
did you see the list that I sent out?
I looked at school,
Okay,
but, I mean, just.
yeah.
So this
So he
February
said,
1st and
he
March
just said North
1st,
Andover, they
Josh?
didn't design.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
So,
Diane,
I'd say another one.
First, March 1st too?
yes,
Both in person?
yes.
Okay.
So we did have a question about seeing one, maybe that you
I'm
guys
happy to
were
do Zoom
involved in
meetings if you all
design.
want to.
I mean, I don't know, we recommended doing every other Zoom at, on the senior center,
Okay.
Yeah.
because we're in a slightly different spot
Yeah,
with the
no,
senior
that's fine.
center, and it's easy to look at the drawings full
Yeah,
screen,
Kevin,
as
all
well
of
as,
us for the setup, so.
right? When we get to that point, we'll be asking you to do Zooms.
Okay.
All right. Next item will be, public comment. Any public comment? All right, last item on the agenda. Motion to adjourn by John Doherty. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second
I'll
by
second.
Jack Holloway. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.